Yeah, we had this guy in the chat last night, in the live chat, who came on talking about, the normal thing, saying, well, the real problem is there's this certain group of people that now has a state, and they didn't used to have a state, but it's this certain group of people that's always making trouble, that's always causing a problem. And of course, I knew immediately what he was trying to say, what group of people he's talking about, and he's talking about the Jews. Is this same old conspiracy theory that the West is always trying to make us believe in, and that many of us do believe in. I was a little bit harsh with this particular man, and immediately ejected him from the chat because we want to have an intelligent conversation. And I'm not about to try to help you shift the blame for the actions of your own so called civilization. Because, either you don't know your own history, which is entirely possible, or you think that we don't know your history, or you don't want us to know your history. But we have to confront the truth, raw and unfiltered. The crimes that were committed by the West against the rest of the peoples of the earth are their crimes and no one else's. No one forced them, no one tricked them, no one controlled them, and we won't allow you to blame shift and put all the responsibility for your actions at the feet of other people, at the feet of anyone else, not the Jews, not the Masons, not the Illuminati, not the Rothschilds. No, you did what you did and you do what you do. The Pope who launched the Crusades wasn't a Jewish Pope. Stop lying about yourselves and stop lying about your history. You were responsible for the transatlantic slave trade that ripped millions upon millions of people from their homes, from their families, from their cultures, and you invented the whole concept of white supremacy to try to justify your barbarity, classifying your fellow human beings as subhuman. It was Westerners that raided that whole continent like savage beasts, chaining free people, packing them into ships like cattle, transporting them across the ocean to lives of unimaginable horror. Over 12 million souls were uprooted. Their lives were stolen. Their spirits were broken to build the wealth of the very people who were dehumanizing them. That was you, not the Jews. Even though you retroactively try to pretend somehow that the Jews forced you to rape and pillage Africa, that they forced you and your founding fathers to force Africans to work your fields and build your economy. That was all against your will, right? Every degenerate plantation owner had a gun to his head, didn't he? Jews forced him to buy human beings and treat them like animals. You were tricked into it, right? It was IPAC all along. And when the Berlin Conference was convened in 1884, where European powers sat around a table and carved Africa up like a piece of meat, the Jews told you what to do, right? The Congo was turned into a personal plantation for King Leopold of Belgium, where 10 million Africans were worked to death, mutilated, and murdered for the sake of rubber and ivory. I guess poor King Leopold must have been hypnotized by the Jews, yes? And every single vicious colonizer who inflicted that savagery on the Congo, I guess they were all forced or tricked into it by all of those all-powerful Jews who you were at the same time persecuting in Europe. No, the French, the British, the Germans, the Portuguese, all of them imposed their will on Africa, draining its resources, enslaving its people, and crushing any resistance underfoot. But you want us to believe that you were only doing that because you were under some kind of a spell by the Jews. And really, you're just kind-hearted, innocent do-gooders, if only those nefarious Jews would let you be. You must really think we're fools. The British Empire flooded China with opium, turning millions of people into addicts just to satisfy the British lust for profit. I guess that was all for the Jewish cabal, wasn't it? Those proper English gentlemen would never do such a thing. When the Chinese resisted, the British responded with vicious force, waging the opium wars to secure their right to poison an entire nation. I guess that was all under duress from the powerful Jewish rulers of the world, wasn't it? For over 2 centuries, those same British exploited India's wealth and turned that prosperous civilization into a land of famine and poverty. They massacred anyone who dared to rise up, just like in Amritsar, where British soldiers slaughtered hundreds of unarmed men, women, and children in cold blood. Winston Churchill starved tens of millions of Bengalis, but I guess that was all just to please his Jewish masters. That's the way you tell it. You colonized the Philippines, first the Spanish and then the Americans. You murdered over 200,000 Filipinos in a brutal war of subjugation. But we've got the wrong guy. Yeah? We've got the wrong guy. That couldn't have been you. That couldn't have been you wonderful, peace-loving Anglo-Saxon Christians, right? No. I guess the Jews were controlling you all the way back when you wrought havoc on the indigenous civilizations of the Aztecs and the Incas and the Mayans. That couldn't have been you. Those must have been Jewish conquistadors who brought death and destruction and wiped out entire cultures, enslaved the survivors, and imposed a brutal regime of exploitation that continues until this day. From Guatemala to Chile, from Nicaragua to Haiti, the people of Latin America, so-called Latin America, have suffered under the weight of American imperialism, and their struggles for liberation are always met with bullets and bombs and death squads. But again, that wasn't you, was it? You're as innocent as a baby, right? I guess it was the Jews who landed on Plymouth Rock, right? It couldn't possibly have been white European Christians who committed one of the most massive and longest genocides in human history against the Native Americans. That must have been Jews too, right? The systematic campaign of extermination must have been executed on the orders of the Jews. From the eastern seaboard to the plains of the Midwest, from the deserts of the Southwest to the forests of the Pacific Northwest, the indigenous peoples of America were hunted like animals. Their lands were stolen, their cultures erased. The Trail of Tears, the Wounded Knee Massacre, the countless broken treaties, over 500 broken treaties, all bear witness to the genocidal intent of those invaders. But we've got the wrong guy. That's what you'd like us to believe. It wasn't you. It wasn't white Europeans. And apparently the diabolical machinations of the Jews reached all the way down under, didn't it? All the way to Australia, where the Aboriginal people who lived for 60,000 years in harmony with their land, well, they were declared as non-human by British colonizers and hunted down and killed like animals. Their children were ripped away from their arms in a policy that they called assimilation, that sought to erase their culture, erase their identity, and erase their very existence. But I guess that was the Jews too, wasn't it? Just stop with this nonsense. We all know you. We know your history. We know it all too well because your history derailed our history, and it turned countless lives into a catastrophic nightmare. I mean, how do you imagine that we can look in your eyes while you're assaulting us and then you try to convince us that someone else is doing the beating? And yes, like I said, bear in mind that all of these crimes you've committed and that you want to blame the Jews for, all of these crimes were committed during a time when you were also simultaneously persecuting the Jews themselves in your countries. But you want to tell one group of your victims that another group of your victims is the one that victimized them, while you insult our intelligence. Your hatred of the Jews is exactly what has led to the whole problem that we have right now in the Middle East. That's all your fault, and it's all because of your hatred of the Jews. Your persecution of the Jews led to Zionism, and that led you to support relocating all of the Jews out of Europe and sticking them in Palestine. Your Holocaust against the Jews has been the fuel for the genocide that the Palestinians have suffered for the last 100 years. And now you come to us like you're giving us sincere advice, like you want to explain the source of our problems to us. And all you come with is the same anti-Jewish conspiracy theories and hatred that started all of our problems in the first place. Why, even now, Israel itself wouldn't have any power if it wasn't for you people. And you're only supporting it now precisely for the same reason, because you still hate the Jews now just like you did then. I'm telling you, you're sick. And you come to us with that same old sickness, and you try to tell us that it's a medicine. It's not America, it's IPAC. It's not the UK, it's the Jewish bankers. It's not Europe, it's the Rothschilds. Well, you must be out of your mind. Do you know that Jeff Bezos could eat the entire Rothschilds family for brunch? The Waltons, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, they have more money in their couch cushions than the whole Rothschilds family possesses today. It's not 1917. Wallahi, it's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing to see people literally using 19th and 20th century European anti-Jewish propaganda in 2024. And they're saying it like they cracked the code. Your whole ideology is an antique. It's like you want me to stop using a smartphone because you just discovered 2 cups connected by a fishing wire, and you think it's an update. You'll do anything to avoid responsibility for your own actions. You'll shift the blame to whoever you can. Like I said, it's IPAC. It's the Jewish lobby that's holding everyone hostage in Congress. It's not Boeing. It's not Lockheed. It's not Raytheon. It's not General Dynamics. You know, if it wasn't for those pesky Jews, you wouldn't dream of funneling hundreds of billions of dollars into the weapons sector, would you? No, you'd never do that of your own volition. No, we're not stupid. And we have a memory. You've always been like this and you've never changed. This is the only experience we have with you. And look, we have a memory of the Jews too. Jews lived in the Muslim Empire for centuries and we never had an issue. Your psychotic hatred is the issue. Your psychotic hatred of the Jews, of us, of Africans, of Asians, of anyone and everyone who isn't you. And the truth is, you even hate each other. Your first colonizing experience was against the Irish, and they look just like you. Never mind the fact that you've actually been vicious to your own people in your own countries all along anyway, even when they look like you, and follow your same religion, or your same beliefs, if they aren't rich, if they aren't landowners, if they're serfs. Because yes, it's not really even about Christianity. It's not really even about whiteness. The Irish were disqualified from being considered either one, according to you, at one time. Even forget about religion. In fact, there's a direct correlation between your so-called enlightenment and colonization. When you supposedly left the Dark Ages, you went on a mission to extinguish the lights everywhere else. From Africa to Asia, from Latin America to the Pacific, all the peoples of this world have suffered under the yoke of Western aggression. And this isn't just history. This is our reality. This is our legacy. And this is our struggle. And it's a struggle that continues to this very day. And one of the reasons why this struggle continues is precisely because you continuously lie about this history. You lie about this reality, you lie about this legacy, and you try to misrepresent and confuse the nature of this struggle by blame shifting and scapegoating and never, ever just acknowledging what you have done and what you are doing, even though everyone in the world knows